Yes. Laura will be back there, but she said not to wait, so. Good morning and welcome to the January Washington State University Board of Regents meeting. We're here in Seattle and we're excited to get started. The first of two very big and busy, important days with the board. I'd like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging that WSU's locations statewide are on the homelands of Native peoples who have lived in this region from time immemorial. The university expresses its deep respect for and gratitude toward these original and current caretakers of the region. Today, we are joined with two new regents, and I want to welcome both Sam Hunt and Howard Wright. We'll do a little bit more of an introduction when we head into our board meeting tomorrow morning, but we're glad to have you at this table and look forward to your input. We are, for the record, going to move forward with a roll call of our board by our Administrator Tracy Jordan. All right. Lisa Shower, here. Jeanette Ramos. Present. Marty Dickinson. Here. Brett Blankenship.
Here.
Enrique Cerna.
Here.
Doug Pika.
Here.
Laura Powell. Is here. Judy McDonald. Here. Cassandra Vogel. Is here. All right. Sam Hunt.
Here.
Howard Wright.
Present.
You have four. Excellent. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for being here this morning. We will invite members of the public to provide input to the board later in our board meeting. Actually, we have changed the format of our board meeting so that public comment actually will occur at the beginning of the meeting so that we can listen to anyone who may have input on something that we intend on taking action during our board meeting. So instead of waiting until the end of our board meeting, we'd love to hear from our public at the beginning of the board meeting. If you have feedback for the board or you'd like to bring something to the board, we ask that you go ahead and reach out using the online form found at regents.wsu.edu. You can email the regents at regents@wsu.edu or contact the board's executive assistant, Tracy Jordan. Public comments may be made virtually or in person. We also recognize that there are folks that like to tune in, and we invite you to do so on our YouTube live stream. A link to the live stream is available on the WSU Board of Regents website. I'd like to mention that the Regents Committee meetings will convene the span of 2 days. So in the past, we've tried to ensure that the committee meetings all occur on Thursday because of the work that we're doing as a board right now. And the need for us to ensure that we have enough time for healthy discussion. We will have committee meetings that will occur on Friday as well. All right. We're going to go ahead and move into our executive session. So in accordance with RCW 42.30.110, the Regents will hold an executive session to evaluate the qualifications of applicants for public employment. We'll consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase, and we'll discuss with legal counsel litigation or potential litigation. This session will be closed. We anticipate the executive session will conclude at approximately 10:30 a.m. unless I extend it by further announcement. If any action is taken during our executive session, we will take that action in an open session at a future meeting. So at this time, I would just ask anyone who is not a regent or whom I have not invited to participate in the executive session to go ahead and leave the room. Thank you.
Mute. Oh, it's running. Yes. Okay, I'm unmuted. That's got that. I've got the presentation mapped up in there. I need to drop the presentation.
You can go in there.
Oh,
Would that be easier? Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Perfect.
I'm gonna set it for 10, but we need to check in through the computer. Then there's a break. I think we're gonna have to close. Maybe not.
Well, Olympia has the Pepsi bottle. Bottle or can or whatever.
Yeah. I can't hear them yet, but eventually they'll unmic themselves.
Well, the Regents are back together and we're going to go ahead and move into our Academic and Student Affairs Committee chaired by Regent Pika.
Thank you, Chair Shower. Good morning, everyone. I want to describe our committee as composed. We have a new slate on our committees, which include Regent Cerna and Hunt and McDonald and Vogel. So this is a committee report. We have 3 information items to discuss, and we have 1 action item. And I'd like to introduce Provost and Executive Vice President Chris Riley Tillman to introduce a new information series, which I'm really excited about, and to hear more about it.
Thank you very much.
You are.
One of the things we wanted to start doing in combination with the president's office and the board is highlighting different colleges in different board meetings and really getting into some of the unique natures and some of the unique strengths and opportunities that exist within those units. These are, as we move forward, the goal here is not to have a unvarnished pitch from a dean to the board, but rather focus on really updating some of the unique and interesting things that are occurring so that we increase everybody's understanding of all of the broad operations of the academic entity at WSU. And this isn't going to be a comprehensive overview. So this isn't a 101 on what our College of Vet Med does, but really looking at a specific key part of it. We're going to do these quickly. And so there's a limited number of slides. Dory's a fast talker, so she can probably plow through a number of these, but then really have an opportunity for the board to talk with the leader of that unit and ask questions and really understand. We started with Vet Med for a couple of reasons. To start off with, they have a fantastic leader in Dory. Number 2, it is a really unique college. It is a college that obviously started with veterinary medicine, but includes some really important other components, including a lot of our biology apparatus, global health, public health, et cetera, which are critical for both the educational mission of the university and also extraordinarily significant in our overall research mission. And so we're going to do one of these each time. We'll have business next. I believe we'll have nursing or perhaps medicine, our Spokane one, and then we'll keep going in that direction. So I want to be quiet because the more interesting information Dory has, and I'll kick it over to her. And Dory, are you ready?
Yep, I believe I am. So I'm hoping you guys can manage the slides. So I really appreciate being here. Can you hear me okay? Is everyone good? Okay. So I thought I would start with public health. So as Chris alluded to, our college has a lot of strengths, but public health in particular started as a memo back in 2020 and is now a full-fledged program. And that's a pretty fun thing for a dean to be a part of and to see. So I thought this would be a really great thing to focus on. Our public health program was funded by the state recently, and it is focused on rural, remote, and underserved populations. So next slide, please. So this degree included the Regents, which is one of the great things about it. It actually included Tom Kula, who's also here. You guys have the verbiage, the document that goes along with this. But really, it came out of the COVID pandemic and an understanding that the eastern side of the state was underserved in the pandemic response. It also came from a number of our leaders and teachers who recognized that we have undergraduate students, a lot of them in the pre-health and STEM disciplines, who wanted to make a difference. And public health is one of those ways in which people can kind of give back. So a working group was formed, and that included faculty from our college, but really from a lot of colleges. So although I'm presenting this, it is really a multiple college endeavor, our public health degree. So the College of Ag, Communications, Arts and Sciences, the Health Sciences group, and we also included Native American programs staff, as well as our External Affairs and Government Relations group. They were really instrumental for this degree. We now call this group a Public Health Collaborative. And that included everything. It included a retreat that we did. It included really doing a system-wide survey of our strengths and our assets in the field of public health and allied areas. We were very interested in doing an undergraduate degree, but very much are focused on evolution to a master's degree as potentially even a PhD. The medical college is interested in MD, PhD, those kinds of programs. But we knew we needed to focus on access to care, rural communities, access to care, social determinants of health, and our other strengths like global health, our strengths in disease diagnostics through Waddle, our One Health program. Nursing has a leadership certificate program. So we really wanted to build on our strengths. So under the guidance of Colleen Kerr, kind of our former government affairs group, we drafted a white paper. This was definitely a faculty-driven program. And we requested funding from the state legislature with help from the provost's office and people there who helped us with how to put together these papers. That was actually approved then by WSU to move forward to the legislature, approved by you all, the regents. And I think one of the reasons this was funded when it was funded in 2023 was, in 2025, the biennial there, was because it actually aligned with the Department of Health strategic initiatives. So that was really important. We saw their strategic plan, our strategic plan, and our alignment. It really helped. And so understanding the effects of public health on the east side of the state. So initially, the tracks were proposed infectious disease to leverage Waddle and global health and our infectious disease expertise, as well as global health, and also then a behavioral health track for Spokane and Vancouver. This is a multiple college, multiple campus endeavor. It was funded at about $5 million per year for funding for faculty members, as well as staff and all of our different campuses. And we've spent the year getting together curriculum, going through the faculty senate. And this fall, 2024, we started our program. So go ahead, next slide, please. So the first thing we did was hired a couple of faculty. We started with Todd Sabato and Kim McBride. They are actually now faculty in the Allen School of Global Health and the College of Veterinary Medicine, and they are co-directors of the program. And one of the reasons this program is doing so well is because of these two people. So they have hit the ground running in a very real way. They have deep history and experience with public health curriculum in different institutions and universities, teaching as well as curricular development and leadership. Spokane has also hired their 3 faculty. That's their total faculty lines. They did it in a cohort hire, which worked really well for them. They're listed here, and they've all started. And they now are working with our co-directors for their own teaching programs starting the fall of 2025. Vancouver has 2 faculty positions that are currently open, being actively recruited. And faculty members from all of our campuses are engaged in these search committees. So for instance, Todd and Kim are engaged in these search committees, and now Spokane as well. And in Pullman, we have our 2 final faculty positions open this year, one in environmental health and the other in public policy. These were really driven by, again, building on our own strengths and in alignment with industry, Department of Health collaboration, which has helped guide our choices. Next slide, please. So the students have been great. Todd and Kim started teaching this fall. They had over 22 students in their first intro to public health class with absolutely no advertising. So by the time this was approved by all the powers that be, there was no time to advertise. We have a number of our majors already declared. And here's just a couple of stories from our website on our 2 first majors. I think there's 10 majors already declared right now. Both of them have talked about wanting to give back to their community. So it's a really, really nice community outreach land grant mission degree. We now have, I think Todd told me, over 45 students signed up for our Intro to Public Health. We're now doing 2 sections already in our Intro to Public Health course. So that's really lovely. We are focusing on programs where students can earn a living wage. That was really decided early on to be an important part of it, and other interprofessional team approaches, experiential learning in the 4th year, the capstone year. So go ahead, next slide. So we developed initially 2 tracks, behavioral health and infectious disease. That was what we suggested for the legislative, and that's what we developed. But our directors have been really, really wonderful about developing new concentrations, including animal science, environmental justice, policy, gender and sexuality, health communication. This is so important for students. They love these concentrations. And they have new tracks. And one of those tracks that was really interesting to me was the generalist track. We can now have 2-year transfers. So before in our infectious disease track, if you had a 2-year transfer, it was going to be a 5-year degree. But with the generalist track, we've removed some of the intense infectious disease upper division courses, and they can be graduated in 4 years, which is important. And all of our pre-health tracks, pre-nursing, pre-med, et cetera, they've worked with the health professions to get those tracks in order. So we also hired staff, which has been great, staff in recruitment, marketing, and our most recent staff is going to be in the 4th year undergraduate experiential capstone experiences. So that's really important. And we have donors identified 2 already. And we have advisory boards. I've listed the members in the document with this. It includes external and internal advisors. So from all the colleges, as well as our Department of Health, Office of Strategic Partnerships, et cetera, and Whitman County Public Health. I think, so go ahead, the final slide. So in terms of where we're headed, Vancouver is hoping to offer their 4-year program starting this fall. Now, Vancouver, of course, has the capacity to do a 4-year program. Spokane doesn't yet because of the UCOR. They don't have the UCOR options. So they're going to be offering a 2+2 program, perhaps in fall 2025 or maybe fall of 2026. We are going to be offering the entire 3-year curriculum this fall, starting fall of 2025. And this year, they're spending a lot more time on marketing and relationship building. So experiential learning, capstone experiences, they're going to have a really neat video that comes out. They're translating some of their brochures into Spanish and some of the native languages for tribes with whom we expect to be doing some recruitment and engagement. And really also focused on micro-credentialing with industry input. That's been a critical part of what they're engaged in. So they do have a lot of external advisors who are from industry and academic units around the state. So I'm going to stop there and happy to answer any questions about this program or anything else, maybe.
Questions? Comments?
I have a comment of Judy's.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair. Dory, this is Rep Blankenship speaking of. I wanted to thank your college for its involvement in helping out Washington Department of Wildlife as we are managing the chronic wasting disease outbreak of deer and elk in the area.
Mm-hmm.
It hits me personally because I do guided hunting for mule deer on my ranch. And the sportsmen and the department are very thankful for
Mm-hmm.
diagnostic labs involvement. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
overseeing that, being involved in.
You're welcome. Mm-hmm.
Then on a personal note, as it relates to your land grant comments as well. Several months ago, my daughter was coming home from vacation. And as they were letting the pets out, unpacking the car, this poor little Australian shepherd was torn to shreds, got crossways with a pit bull in the neighborhood.
Ah. Hmm.
All of the local vets Walla Walla and Tri-Cities gave the poor animal up for dead.
Mm.
Daughter calls me in the middle of the night, would you call Dory? See if he can get our doggy into the WSU hospital. And I said, I didn't pull favors. I just said, why don't you go in person and
Mhm.
see what the staff will do? They pulled out all the stuff.
Mhm.
And this little doggy was given up for dead
Mhm.
after 3 months of driving back and forth to Pullman for,
Mhm.
daily treatments, and the dog made it. It's a
Mhm.
miracle story,
Mhm.
but it's a
Mhm.
wonderful tribute
Yeah.
to what you have going on at the college and the public outreach, and you never know
Yeah.
the ripple
Yeah.
of the humanity goodwill that you do,
Yeah.
but I wanted you to hear that you
Mm.
saved
Mhm.
the Regents step dog.
Brett, I want to thank you for
Yeah.
that, because now I'm going to hear this from Dory repeatedly. and
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, exactly. It's never going to end. Well, I have to say, I
would
actually probably had nothing to do with that.
For a video story.
So
Can I just say, Dory, I think just, to all the people that have been involved in putting the program together. A shout out to a lot of our students who were thinking about this for a long time. And I just experienced this firsthand with my STCU hat on in Spokane with on Spokane campus, and working with Daryl and all of the deans up there, and then your school as well, where we get to witness people are willing to bring their pets to be vaccinated, but they're not willing to kind of take care of themselves. And we have this event now, which is so great, where you watch people come in and hand their dog, their cat, their cow, whoever they are doing. And then we have our nursing students and our med students right there asking, while they're taking care of your pet, would you like us to check your blood pressure?
Yeah.
Would you like full? Can I interest you in a flu shot? I mean,
Yeah.
they've been doing that now for a few years. So shout out to your students and the deans on the ground. They have been actually doing public health in lots of meetings right now for a long time. So I just really appreciate it and feel honored that I get to be a part of the kind of Eastern Washington area. So
yeah. I love the fact that you guys are highlighting all the programs I didn't highlight, but I could have highlighted, like our amazing work with Waddle, which is also dealing with highly pathogenic avian influenza right now and is absolutely critical to that response. Our teaching hospital, which I love your story, and it's the story of many, and I appreciate you not calling me in the middle of the night, because I would have referred you to them. And they do amazing work, and we hear it all the time. And yeah, you're exactly right. We have the One Health Clinic in Seattle, which is the epitome of trauma-informed care, where adding animals to the health clinic has increased the receipt of human health care by over 70%. People come back. People tell their veterinarians things over their cats, so they would never tell their human doctors, even though they're human health problems. And then, of course, we have the Spokane collaborative event with the Healthy People, Healthy Pets with the College of Nursing. So yeah, no, it's the college, well, does an amazing job. Most of these long before me, just so you know.
I think one of the take homes with this, and I'm excited that this has moved in this direction, because I think it should work well moving into the future. We have a uniquely complex College of Veterinary Medicine, right? It obviously has its historic nature. I mean, it's one of the essentially original components of WSU, but it is. If I compare it to what we had at the University of Missouri, which was focused specifically on that, and it didn't have Waddle, it didn't have, global, it didn't have any of these other entities. And I think the benefit of it is the teaching and the research and the science that happens in the college is, I mean, there are really only a few places in the United States that have a similar mix and projection to what we have at WSU. But it also sometimes, I think, results in a lack of understanding, even amongst individuals at WSU, of all of the different things that are happening within that unit or entity. It's easy to think of it. And we have the same thing with Connors, where you think, okay, it's ag, right? And it's actually way more, it spans out more. And so I think the more that we get into these conversations and see these different pieces, it just helps everybody see how this gets all tied together. And that the impacts are way beyond just the specific entities of what it's named. We have joked, I think Dory and I are both on the same page, it probably should be the College of, veterinary medicine, global health, public health, and molecular biology or something. I mean, and maybe
Well,
that's
Chris,
something
don't laugh. You will maybe be seeing that pretty soon. So just so you know.
I set myself up for that, so I.
Mhm.
Any last questions for Dory?
Regent McDonald?
I was gonna do compliments, but I don't think I can follow that team with anything
Yeah.
more exciting than what's already been said.
Well, Dory could talk about George and her personal experiences going into the veterinary hospital and her personal
Mhm,
contributions
mhm.
in that up and running.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Oh.
So I love this mission moment concept and what a great start. Dory, thank you for that.
You're
That's
welcome.
how it started, really gets to what we're all about, just to echo what Chris said, that who we are, kind of defining who we are and having the benefit of hearing these kinds of mission moments at every meeting will be wonderful. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate your support. Absolutely.
Hi, I have one question. I really like the concept of this program. Perhaps maybe in a couple of years, you could come back and let us know what's going on with the students, how they're progressing, what their trajectory is after graduation, that type of thing, just to see what the outcomes are.
Yeah. No, I'd be happy to. So you can invite us back. And one of the things I mentioned is this concept of having staff. And as you know, when you start losing staff or staff are under, they just have so much to do, it's a hard time to track outcomes, track recruitment efforts, track all of that. But right now we actually have staff. And so our intention is to do that, to track outcomes, to track recruitment, to be actively engaged with marketing. So yeah, we have high expectations, in part based on the quality of faculty and students we already have, but in part because we actually are going to have staff for this program, which makes a big difference. Invite us back.
Joy, Florida.
Yeah, no, it's cold and gloomy here, just so you know.
Well, good. Good. Makes me happy.
No,
So we'll move on to our second information item, which Provost Riley Tim would stay there. But joining the provost will be our Vice Provost for Academic Engagement and Student Achievement, Bill Davis, and WSU Pullman Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Ramondo Nash, regarding the important issue of retention. So, Provost Riley Tim.
Thank you. Let these two gentlemen sit down. They can debate who sits in what seat. All right. So we wanted to have a conversation really about a two-part discussion or conversation. I'm going to talk about enrollment management, where we are with enrollment management. I'm going to do my best cheat impersonation, but I can't talk about salmon swimming up the river and harvesting and stuff like that. So I'll just keep it to the nuts and bolts. But talk about where we are in terms of enrollment management, and then how that or why that is going to make our focus on changing and modernizing our retention approach really much more important. So we go to the next slide. This is a messy slide, but if you look at it, you can see back into 2018, 2019, and 2020, and those were our ramp up years. And what this table gives us is the number of people who have applied, and that is as of today, or as of I think it was the middle of January, probably January 15th. And then how that has shifted over time. So we've got the number of applications, we've got the number of people that have been admitted, the number of people have been confirmed. We really like the confirmed number. That's giving us actual yield, and then what those changes are. And we can see that as we moved up into the fall of 2020, we've got that really nice peak. That's when we had our largest class, and where we were at this time. And then what happened subsequently as we went out for COVID, and what the drop was. And so if you look at the fall of 2020, you had 2,800 confirmations in 19, when we also had an incredible class. you had, 1,917. It drops to 1,300, which is obviously a really scary drop. It then drops again to 1,169, which is challenging to say the least. We have a small increase in fall of 2023 to 1,210, but not meaningful. Last year was the first period where we started to see a really nice step up, and that's where we get that 1,599. This year, we are in a similar space to where we were at this time of fall of 19. I would have loved to have believed that when I sat in the first board meeting or sat in the second board meeting with you guys, that I would be able to say at this point that we were looking somewhere in the range of 2019, 2020 numbers. That's an incredibly good sign. Enrollment management writ large has, I would say at this point, overperformed what my expectations are. I think Seattle Week had a big part of this. It's not going to be surprising to anybody that somebody is going to be heavily pushing that Seattle Week. I almost think it should be a contractual mandate in some of these jobs that it's, we need to be there. But if you look at the whole breadth of these numbers, we are trending back into a class that looks much more like what we were seeing, Judy, back in when we were at our peaks, versus what we've seen the last few years. Now, I want to be careful about some of these. I mean, we have an added variable of Seattle Week, which did not exist at the time. And so our numbers are performing differently than they did there. I do not think this means we will have, upwards of a high 4.9 class. When Saichi and I last talked, I would not have went into this year thinking that 4.6s was possible. I now would be a little disappointed if we didn't hit 4.6 for first years. And now we'll see where this rolls out. I'm probably going to get a note from Saichi that I just increased the anxiety level exponentially, but that's not the worst thing in the world. But we are in a state of where I am really confident. We had a very similar trend at Mizzou after an event where we started seeing these numbers trend back up. These are trending back up the way they ought to be trending up. Honestly, if we got into the 4.6s, 4.7s the next years, that might be for the short-term window what a very logical class size is for us. The 4.9 number had some real challenges. We would need to start building and renovating and doing some stuff to really be able to handle that. The point being on this, I think there has been some really substantial focus on enrollment management by the president's office, by the board, and by folks on each one of the campuses and the overall system. And I feel confident in that space right now. What I'm not confident in is that we are transitioning our retention management component to a space of where we're getting the outcomes that we need to be seeing, that have been seen at comparable peer institutions of ours with similar resource structures, similar student population, so on and so forth. And so while we're not going to take the eye off the ball in terms of enrollment management, I do want to start to shift some of the energy and some of the focus in other places. And Bill and Ron are going to be great people leading this with Saichi, so that we can get our enrollment management numbers up into the place that I think they should be, which, to be blunt, are higher than any of the ones of our regional state universities. Our overall retention management in the state, I was surprised how low it is as compared to some comparatives. So I'm going to kick this over now to the other end of the table, and we can go to the next slide.
Chris, when you say 4.6s, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, 4,600 first-year students.
Sure.
This year we had about 4,350 something first-year students. In those troughs, we were down into the 3,000s, high 3,000s. The one last note on this, I'm sorry, go back to the slide. I'm being terrible here, but I apologize. I do want one caveat. These are 4 to 5 year trends. And so what that means is that we are not replacing these smaller classes until 4 to 5 years after they started.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I'm really excited where our first year students numbers are, the idea that will immediately infuse significant tuition into our budgetary challenges, that doesn't happen. Now, if we continue this and continue to step up, next year would be the first year, not the fall of 25, but the fall of 26 would be the first year of where we would be replacing one of our much smaller classes with, again, a larger class. And so you would see some tuition infusion. But Leslie and I've talked about, we want to be careful when talking about this. You know, once you quote unquote solve this, it takes 4 to 5 years for it to wash out and you actually get back to the point fiscally where you were when the catastrophe occurred. And that's, it's sometimes it's hard for people to remember when the news is so good, but the budget isn't following, you know, yeah. Thanks. You guys, next slide.
All right, so I'll kick us off on the next part. So in order to really start a conversation around retention, Chris felt it was important that we benchmark where we sit today and to look at some past trends. There's some mythology out there, I think, around our retention. And I think looking at hard numbers is always important to do here. Just for your record, this comes from iPads, which is a national repository. When we look at peer comparison data, we're trying to compare apples and apples here. So this is data that we've submitted and these other institutions have submitted. I will show you some internal data that was generated with partnership with OSPA here in the next slide. But for right now, this is from a federal record. So to benchmark, we needed to come up with a set of peers. So we decided to look in the Northwest and we looked at NWCCU institutions. If you look at this list of peers, you'll see that some of them are now in whatever the new PAC X is. I'm not sure what that X number is yet. Some of them are in the former PAC 12. These are all research universities. They're all within NWCCU, and we were able to pull their data out in order to look at. And so if you look on the right-hand side of this slide, if you look at first to second year retention rates, you'll see that WSU stays around 80%. We're going to talk more about that number here in just a minute. But if you want to benchmark with our peers, that basically puts us right at the median and the mean of where our peer set is. Our peer set range is about 73 to 89, and that varies slightly from year to year on that group. So an 80% retention, 81% retention puts us right in the middle of that group. If you look at our 6-year graduation rates, of course, retention and graduation rates are directly tied because every year, if you're losing students, that's going to lower your 4 and 6 year graduation rates. If we look at 6-year graduation rates over a 3-year window, and again, this is pretty far back in time because it takes 6 years to get these students to a graduation point, you can see that we are right at basically the average of where our peer comparators are in terms of our 6-year graduation rate. So what that tells us automatically is that there are some things that we are doing well here whenever it comes to student retention. We have programs that are working, we have programs that are effective, but what it also tells us is that we're not in that upper range, which is where we would really aspire to be amongst this group. And so there are going to be areas where we're going to need to identify challenges, barriers, and opportunities, and then act on those in order to really move our retention efforts forward.
Can I do 2 things on this slide?
Please.
So 2 key points. The university that at this point has the highest retention rates is Oregon State. Okay, so it's not Oregon, it's not Utah, it's Oregon State. So really comparable university, similar, I mean, all those things. Ed Fesser, the previous provost, who just went to be the president at St. Louis University. This was a fundamental point of his time there. And their model is they want 100% graduation rate, but they want it to be 90% from Oregon State, and they want the 10% of people to leave to get a degree somewhere else, and then they track and count those. And so I think the key point there is, someone would look at and say, well, maybe that's the University of Utah. They've got different resource structure, stuff like this. It's a really comparable university that's at the top. At Mizzou, we went from the mid 80s to the 90s. So my goal is not 87%. Okay, 87% is not enough. We need to be in the 90s, 91, 92% in some terms of first year. And those 6-year graduation rates need to be in the 70%. And if you start to play out a 10% increase in your overall retention, that has far more of an impact on your budget, far more of the impact on how we service the state, so on and so forth. It's more important for us to get 10% of keeping than it is to increase our first year class by 10% in every way, shape, and form. So there is some tremendous opportunity for growth in this space that comparable universities have done by simply making this an organized central focus.
Can I ask a favor?
Of course.
When the acronym things, can you tell me what that is? Like iPads or, and WCC? I hate this. I just like to know
What is the iPads acronym?
iPads,
Yeah, Leslie?
Leslie,
It's the post-secondary education data system.
yes.
It's promulgated by the Department of Education. Chris Hoyt's office feeds information to iPads. We feed financial information to iPads.
What other?
NWCCU, that's the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities. That's our regional accreditor.
Sorry, right.
I don't do that. It's like.
Sorry.
I know, it's,
Crazy.
it makes us think we're smart, so, we gotta go down that path.
Just allows us to talk faster. Chris, do you happen to know the 6-year graduation rate for Oregon State?
I don't, although Bill will get it to you.
Yes.
But iPads does.
I can,
We can pull it out.
I have a EAB used to do data for us, and I have a presentation that sticks in my head. And they came in and did some analysis for us shortly after we really worked hard on 1st-year retention.
Yeah.
And what they showed was we just kicked the can down the road
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
And I don't want to be.
No.
I want to kick the can. I want graduation. I don't want.
Yeah,
I want
right.
that support to be there the whole
We'll
way.
talk
So
about this. First year of
it's
the
the-
proxy.
My PTSD always gets triggered.
You're absolutely right. First year retention is obviously a wonderful proxy for gains at graduation. But we're using that as a data placeholder for things that we are doing 1st year, 2nd year, 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year. And not, we're gonna go all out and then we're gonna lose them 2nd to 3rd. Leslie would have words for me if we took that approach. So we're not, but it's an excellent.
Chris, one other thing. Once they have confirmed, do they all show up? Do X% show up? How does that?
They don't, and we have shifted our confirmation activities in a couple of ways. We were requiring a down payment at X point. And unfortunately, what we were finding is that was resulting in our Pell Mell population that we're so proud about, delaying actually confirming because they needed that in place. We switched over to having that, the actual monetary contribution to be done at a time when financial aid could be a part of supporting that and did not find a drop off. But we're not going to yield 100% of.
No, but
Yeah.
is there an?
I don't know.
Percent that we.
I-
Matriculates?
My understanding is it's very hard to predict.
Well, so we can say what the confirms were versus the numbers. We can get that data for you. But what I don't know is what does that mean in the January snapshot? And so what this at least gives us is where we were in confirmations at that point versus this point. And I would rather be in the 1920 band than in the 22,
Well, absolutely. But I mean, my point in asking is, I just wonder if we do have a significant number of drop off from the confirms. To think about strategies that might bring them over the
Right.
line to WSU and whether it's extra communications with them,
Well, I wish.
But not just for maybe a future.
No, absolutely. I wish Aisha was here. We actually have a really, really aggressive summer program, which brings people in. We have revamped how advising and coursework works so that they can sign up for the right courses. Romano's gonna be able to hit some of these different pieces. This group and student affairs and the campuses as a whole, at this point, are almost pathological on how to get every person over the line. Because that's where these numbers are cubed. But at the end of the day, the every person we lose, we're dropping down. And that's where Saishi jokes that he's happy 11 months of the year, and 1 month of the year, he's panicked. And that's that last piece of how do you get everybody in the door? And this won't surprise anybody. First year students, Pell Mell students, et cetera, it's harder to get that step than it is for second gen, populations that have more consistent history within college schooling. So.
Yeah, I think if Saichi was here, he would tell you that right now they are transitioning from that application to the yield, right? We have visitation weekends coming up. They have all kinds of activities that are going on to really pull in as many of those students as we can and land them. in that first year class.
Yeah, we know that students have changed, right? It used to be that if students showed up for orientation, you had them. Now students are shopping. They're doing multiple orientations at multiple institutions. And so you really gotta come with your game prepared to be able to win them over.
Well, and just speaking of somebody that has had 3 kids go to 3 different institutions, all outside of the state of Washington, the institution's coming to them.
Yes.
So from Texas to Arizona, they're coming to Colorado, they're coming to the student. They're not waiting for the student to show up in Pullman in the summer to go to an orientation. So there's lots of different things there that, you know, it's competitive in how you know, keep those students in the funnel.
Now, I will say, last year we yielded higher than we expected. Our number actually was high. We thought the number was going to be in the 42s, and we yielded about 50, 55 students over what we were predicting based on our number. So I do want to switch a little bit because I think the retention conversation is the key. I think, I'm not saying we've nailed enrollment. It's that we have focused, we have done the retention piece is where we have work to do.
So Chris, on your retention piece.
Yeah.
Are these numbers consistent across the various campuses or some campuses?
They are different across the campuses and we've looked at them. They're not wildly different. The one outlier tends to be global, which is normal. I mean, every place has a different piece. And so it's not like we have campuses that are in the 60s and campuses that are in the 90s. The Pullman number is very close to our average because it's so many of the students that it weighs it down. If I'm right, Tri-Cities was a little above, Vancouver was a little below in the last one. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, global was lower. Vancouver and Tri-Cities tend to be about the same.
Right.
They're in the 70s, I believe, and then Pullman is right at the average just because we have the bulk of the students basically, so it skews that data.
But this is a piece of when we talk about the retention package. We do really great stuff. It's incredibly siloed and we're not good at the transitions. And so what that means is if somebody comes in and they want to be an engineer and they want to get into a fraternity and they get into a fraternity and they like engineering, we're good. But if they come in and they don't get into the fraternity or engineering doesn't turn out to be right, we struggle with transitions because we do not have a unified retention approach. And honestly, we're not giving units enough credit for when we retain somebody and they go elsewhere. So one of the switches we made at the University of Missouri is you almost got credit in half. If I had a student who came into education, they shifted to nursing and they graduated, I got more credit for that than I got from somebody who came in and stayed. Does that make sense? And so we've got places in the transitions. It could be somebody who starts in Pullman, Pullman's not right, Vancouver would be perfect. That's where we're not, we don't have a codified Cougar retention, go Cougs. Like it would seem like we would have that kind of brand that would go across, and you might have 70% consistency, but then it's it's a little different in Tri-Cities because of X. It's a little bit different in Vancouver because of Y or engineering or whatever. That's where we're struggling. And I will say one other thing on the numbers. Georgia State has some of the best numbers in the United States right now. Georgia State is a urban serving university in Atlanta that had some of the worst retention numbers in the United States before they started making some changes. So the idea that we can't get elite selective numbers with that are typically focused more on less Pell L, less first gen is categorically wrong. There are places that have done this spectacularly well and get into the right numbers that frankly are more challenging than we have. I mean, that have more challenges than we've got. So.
All right, yeah,
You can go to the next.
yeah,
slide.
please.
Yeah, sorry, next slide.
All right, so in the current WSU system strategic plan, one of the metrics is to look at what I'm calling opportunity gaps, and that's the gap in retention between a population of students and a population of students that have been shown to be at risk in higher education. In this case, I'm going to show you data for first generation students. There is similar data that we have in the Retention Council that Saiichi Ramondo and I lead for Cougs of Color also looking at Pell eligibility, which are the three metrics in the strategic plan. Basically, the trend line that you should take away from this is that we've been at 80% retention, plus or minus 2% for well over a decade. And that really hasn't budged. It goes up, it goes down, but it really doesn't vary from that trend line. What's also true is that for first generation students, and we had a significant increase in those students back around 2012 as it started to ramp up, there is an opportunity gap. Right now, it's somewhere around 8% in our most recent data. And again, that fluctuates. It fluctuates around that sort of 8% level. Sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes it's a little higher, but it's been relatively flat. That is a retention problem right there of a very high magnitude. I did a back of an envelope calculation today. If we were able to close that gap to 0 at the system level, that would increase our retention by 4 percentage points, roughly. If we did the same thing for Cougs of Color and for students that are Pell eligible, we could get even higher than that, probably up into the mid 80s or even 86, 87%, just because of those populations. So this is a big target right now of what we need to do on the retention council is to figure out how to close these gaps so that students who come in who are first generation have as much opportunity as students who are non-first generation to be successful and be retained at our institution and get to that graduation point and that holistic lifespan approach that we want to take to our students.
Can I ask a question? What do you think is the biggest factor that's keeping or having them drop?
I think it is a we have good people doing good things in silos, and you lose people in transitions. And
does that mean staffing or what?
we allow independent units to design their own retention strategies and approaches, and we're not consistent across units. And if you go to any one of our units, they will tell you they're doing a phenomenal job, and they will explain why they're doing a phenomenal job. But as a whole, our numbers are not accelerating to where they would need to be. And so, like, being overly simplistic, X unit, I won't say a unit, so I'll get in trouble. Their numbers look much better of students who start within the state versus the transition pieces. And the ones that transition, who are more likely first-gen students, more likely LL students, who might not know exactly what they do when they walk in the door. Those are the individuals who we're losing. And this is a similar model everywhere. It's not the idea that we're unique in having silos or we're unique in having transition issues. This is what's attacked at each place. And we'll talk about a strategy that we're going to have to try to break out of that. But the broader is, I mean, to me, it's 90% or bust on the first year numbers. And you know, we're going to have to get over the hurdle of everybody thinking they're doing great work because they can think of the students who've been successful, and the outcome data is just not like that. So that's a space. It's not, we don't need to buy some software program. We don't need to hire 700 people. We don't, we need consistency so that people can have when you transition from engineering to chemistry, you're not entering an entirely different construct of how students are supported. And right now we're really, each unit, campus and college, are unique in their approach. And that's very difficult for an 18, 19, 20-year-old to navigate, particularly if they don't have support from a family that has experience in that process history.
Can I ask a question? The first to second year retention, I don't want to discount the importance of that, but it would seem to me that given the difference in that retention rate versus ultimate graduation rate, I'd be interested to see the numbers for the other years as well.
Absolutely.
So the first year retention rate is about, we're losing about 20%. We lose about 10% of those after that from year 2 to year 3, and we lose another 10% now from year 3 to year 4. That's how you get to a 60% graduation rate, basically. So we need to focus across all of those years from the time that a student applies to WSU until after they graduate. That's the picture of student success that we need to build. And that's a cultural shift.
And we're going to be tracking all of those numbers. I mean, we got to the point at Mizzou where we were literally tracking individual students year 3 to year 4, and people were calling individual students. Because I literally had my provost and president calling me saying, why are you losing 3 students?
Yeah.
And we're gonna do that. I think for conversation purposes, we use the data that has the most variance, which is first to second. And first to second is really, it's not even first to second, it's fall to spring. Like you lose the highest percentage in that first 3-month period of time. And then the final 6-year graduation number gives you the bulk of productivity output. We will be tracking all the numbers. You can get a little lost in the data. Like I don't want to hear about, we've got good 3rd year gains, but first year's down. You know what I mean? We need to see the trends moving up in all areas. But yeah, to be clear, this is not a freshman thing. You can wash out. I mean, the kids that are washing out after 4 years, I mean, it's downright tragic, the amount of time that you put in, stuff like that, and that certainly happens.
Thank you.
Question, does it appear that, as you look across these different units that have different strategies, that there might be some best practices that seem to work that you could bring forward?
There are best practices, national. I think we are going to have to, we're going to have to find a way to not have the idea be that communications is doing this right here and doing this right here, but really reset back into here are the evidence-based approaches that have been demonstrated to be successful nationally. And then how are we going to superimpose a consistent version everywhere, but then allow for flexibility so that, I mean, engineering uses clubs. I mean, it's a key component within the engineering structure. That's not the same as the College of Education. You know what I mean? So you have this space that is discipline specific, but it is utterly critical. You know, there are simple things like we have students receive massive numbers of emails from different groups, and simply getting the emails down to a very specific number of who can actually send them out or who can't send them out to students, so that students are more likely to actually read emails because they're not getting 80 up and not knowing what's what. Right now, they're peppered with stuff from this group, this trio group, this group, this group, this group, and they don't even know it's what. So there are national best practices on that. There's a center out of Georgia State, which is a group that we're in the process of starting to work with, who has done this over and over in universities. And the ground rules there are expect that we have no extra money or no extra people. How do we take what we got? And they can give the lens in and say, okay, this is where communications is doing something interesting. This is where engineering is. This is where Tri-Cities is. And so how do we build on that? If it's any of those individual units, you know how this works. We've got the right direction. So we need to put some space in between who's making these recommendations and the individual units fighting, that our way is the best way, essentially. And that's the situation we're in.
Just it sounded like to me when you were talking about some of these students and where, as students that don't have like a strong family support system where they've been to college and can advise, that just finding some good mentors for a lot of the students might be helpful. But I'm sure you'll look at a lot of different strategies.
Well, Marat's gonna talk about some of this. I mean, belongingness is everything. Retention.
Just
I know we got
time check, we got a bunch of items, 21 things.
Talk. Next slide, please.
I get it.
Yeah.
And so we've put together, and actually was put together well before my arrival, but we have a retention council led by Saichi, Bill, and myself that's really looking at this. So as I've come on board, one of the pieces that we've talked about is a need for us to reconstitute that council, right? Bring student affairs to the table, make sure we're examining and looking at some key sort of areas, especially as I continue to have conversations with the students and what they're having or experiencing as their challenges. And so what we've done as a council is we really talked about 4 kind of focus sorts of areas, and I'm going to move us along. So next slide. Our 4 areas are these 4: academic advising, sense of belonging, fiscal support, and early warning system and basic needs, right? From an academic advising perspective, We need to know that no matter where a student is, there's a basic level of advising that they're able to receive, get, participate in, whatever it may be. We also know that from a staff perspective, non-advisors, there's some basic knowledge that they need. Number one being, did you go talk to your academic advisor? Number two being, how do you point a student to the resources that they need in that moment? From a sense of belonging perspective, it's as Chris mentioned earlier, if we can get a student to feel like they want to be at WSU, then we have them. Because that will be what carries them when they're struggling, because they have individuals that they can talk to help them through that struggle. And so creating opportunities and activities and spaces that allow for them to have their own Coug experience and not us defining their Coug experience, because we can't do that. It's their Coug experience. So we just need to make sure that we're providing the environment for them to be able to have that. From a fiscal support perspective, we get in our own way like every institution does. But we have easy opportunities in terms of, let's look at the barriers that we may be putting in place that are preventing students from being able to register, being able to progress in terms of their studies. We also need to better use our early warning system. We have one in place. My previous institution did not. So we're doing some things correctly. We just need to ramp up how we use it, how we need to make sure it's more efficient. We need to make sure that there's full range of coverage around it.
And
we
this
also
is
know
one of where having consistency across units is essential, because we need faculty to buy in. And faculty cannot buy in if there are different approaches in different locations, et cetera, because so much of the credits are actually taught outside of the individual units or locations. And so we need one defined system that everybody knows how to use, when to use it, et cetera. And we're not there right now.
right. And then the basics is basic needs, right? At the end of the day, we know that students are coming with more food insecurity, housing insecurity, those sorts of pieces. And so how do we make sure that we continue to have those resources in place to be able to provide that support to them? Go ahead and go to the next slide. From a next steps perspective, this is what our focus around those 4 areas are. So we need to build a shared vision in terms of our student success across campuses, colleges, and departments. In that, it's really coordinating areas around that vision and trying to break down the silos that Chris mentions. We have to really figure out the use of technology. And one of the pieces that I've talked to Saichi and Bill about is we need for students to know that if they do this, then they do this, and then they take care of that, that's their pathway to get out of WSU in 4 or 5 years. Right now, what we're finding is we don't have a technology in place that makes that very clear to them. So with students in that 3rd year, and it's not clear that pathway. I don't know how many of you have ever had the chance to be on My WSU, but students are trying to look at that on a phone. She smiled at me. It's impossible. It's impossible. So we need to ramp up our technology to make it more student friendly and make it more easy for students to see this is it. We need to continue to evolve our retention council membership. As things change, as we get better, we need to bring other folks to the table with us to help us stay in front of the game and not get back behind again. And then we need to partner. There are institutions, other places that are doing these external to us and doing it well. So we need to partner, we need to look, we need to talk, we need to gauge where can we lift up our game in this area.
We have already started the discussion with the Georgia State group. I worked in the Georgia State group my last 4 years at Mizzou. I was extraordinarily negative when they came in. I was very wrong. I've never seen a consulting group come in and not make recommendations to buy this or do this or do this or do this or do this. It was a flat out, here's what you can do, here's where you've got your current strengths, here's how you can line up, here's your barriers, and go. And so it is not a particularly high cost item at all to work with them. They're not a private consulting group. It's out of a university, and We got from the low 80s at Mizzou into the 90s in 4 years. And, you know, we're not that different in any way, shape, or form. So,
Why is WSU so difficult?
Great question. I wasn't the one that designed it, to be honest with you. You know, I think there's a mixture, right, of how we have things set up in it. If I'm a student, I want to know that this is my first year and this is my second and this is my third. The way that we have some things structured right now, this is my first year. That's the easiest year. My second and third years, we have a lot of if this, then this is sort of pieces. And so if we can work through kind of that process of just making that more clear.
And we've thought about bringing students to come in and tell you what they.
Yeah, we talked earlier. I have a student advisory board that I talk to consistently. I have lunches with students. I've brought stuff back to build the next day. From students. So we're doing it.
Give an example that's quite clear. When I go to the WSU catalog and I open it, it says you should take this in your first year. You should take this in your second year. You should take this in your third year. Well, nobody goes through first year and matches that. At my previous institution, we had a checklist. You need to take each of these courses before you finish. And I found it much easier to advise a student based on, I've checked off what you've taken. I've mapped out what courses are prerequisites for other courses. Now here are the courses left you need to graduate. It was much easier as a faculty advisor to have the checklist than it is to have the 4-year program where you can't quite tell what's required and what's recommended.
It's like an analog digital version of the old paper
yeah,
catalog.
that's exactly.
No, that's right.
It is.
I was just, Sandra, what do you hear from students?
I would say, I believe my WSU does have some checklist capabilities that it is an outdated technology. From my personal experience, I think a lot of your success around advising depends on your advisor. And I've had some really good advisors and I've had some really bad advisors. And from the student perspective, it is important because it has the capability to extend your time at school, which is a financial burden on some people. So that's what I'll say about that. But I have a couple of thoughts that I'll just ask that we probably won't answer right now because we are, being cognizant of the time constraint we have. But I'd be interested to learn about the makeup of the retention council as it relates to representation across the entire system. And additionally, I'm sure you all are doing work on this for transfer students, but I think a lot of the problems that first-year students face, transfer students experience maybe even a little bit more acutely. So I'd be interested to see the numbers on that. And then the different tactics that are being used to address transfer students because they're not, it's not exactly the same. So I'll just.
Right. Final comments, questions? Anybody want to?
Oh, it's on the next, well,
Okay.
I was really excited to see that you're broadening the retention council. And I wanted to point out how much we as faculty need to be participating in this effort. From, Chris brought up transitioning is hard. And I immediately started to think about my program. We say you've got to take this computer science course. What we need is that you got some computing experience. So I feel like by both bringing faculty representation to the table to get buy-in, because we all know you buy in better when you contribute. We also maybe are the people to implement things like any computer science course will do in mathematics, any English course will do. We don't need the specific number we've tagged on from the transfer perspective. So I want to volunteer that you bring in some faculty, and I think we have a lot to contribute. And I was looking at the focus, and for me, a focus would be making sure we're giving them a quality experience in the classroom. And we should be seeing those students, we the faculty should be seeing those students 12 to 20 hours a week. We're huge in this equation.
The faculty are going to be key here. Student governance is going to be key here because this all sounds good. But the minute I say to a dean, I cannot have somebody teaching one of the block classes that's got a 50% DFW weight, move it now, what happens.
Yeah.
The minute we start.
It's got to come from the bottom.
People love the idea of change and breaking down silos and working together. Lisa's face there was fantastic on that one. But the minute it's like, wait, you meant me? Like, and this impacts faculty significantly, like if, you know, with student advising, we need individual advising in units that's customized to the units. But right now, advising in some colleges doesn't even report to the dean. It's unique to each individual department that has to be ripped apart, and people are not gonna be happy. So,
All right, thank you both.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We have one delegated, presidential delegated authority item, commission item. Yeah, Chris, go for it.
And this is a fun one, and I believe Dory might still be on the call, or she might have gone to the beach, although I think it's freezing on the beach where she is right now. This is an extension of a degree, and that's occurring within the, with the University of Nairobi. This is led by the College of Med. It's an extension of the PhD in biomedical sciences to the University of Nairobi. What this does is it will establish some of the research components and some of the advising components, and it will push out and combine the strengths that we have in the relationships with the University of Nairobi and our strength areas. This is a really neat pathway. It's a very unique approach. It's built off of significant grant and research experience within in that area, and has transitioned into where we think there can be a nice educational program. You know, our exposure on it fiscally is a little bit less than it would normally be because it's based on the grant exposure, and we could pull out if we had to. And so we're not talking about building a large campus. We're not talking about populating. It has been a complex pathway to go through because of its uniqueness. I think a lot of different groups within WSU have supported moving us forward, but we're currently at the point where it's been approved by our faculty senate. It's been approved through us, so it's more of an informational item for you guys, and a really unique piece that we're doing. So,
Questions? Anyone? All right. Thank you. We have one action item, and we'd like to invite Dr. Erica Austin, Professor of Director of Murrow Center for Media and Health Promotion Research and Chair of the Honorary Faculty Committee, who is presenting a recommendation on behalf of the committee. Are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me all right?
Hello.
You are hearing me?
Yes. You're
Good.
we go.
Okay. Well, it's wonderful to be with you today. Thank you for inviting me to present these honorary degree nominations to you. I'm going to very, very briefly present to you the process for coming to you with these nominations, and then I will present the nominees. So as chair of the committee, it's truly an honor to be able to present these to you today. Washington State University, in all of the time of its existence, has only conferred a total of 23 honorary doctorates. So this is truly a special thing. We do this somewhat differently from a lot of universities across the country. The most recent awards, 2 of them, were conferred in 2024 to Carla Pepperzak, a Holocaust survivor and rescuer, and Patricia Whitefoot, a citizen of the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakama Nation, and a remarkable mentor and advocate. The degree is bestowed upon an individual who has made profound and enduring contributions to their field, has improved quality of life to society at large, has demonstrated great integrity, and has enhanced the intellectual climate of Washington State University. There is no need for this individual to have been a graduate of Washington State University. They cannot be running for public office. It cannot be conferred in consideration of the payment of money or the giving of property. So those are really important issues to be aware of. The way the process works for the honorary doctorate is that any member of the Washington State University community can make a nomination. The committee is comprised of 12 faculty who are extremely happy to be on this committee. You can imagine some committees are not committees that faculty might be thrilled to be on, but this is one they are. And it also includes ex officio members who are the provost, the vice president of the Office of Research, and a faculty senate executive representative. They are the faculty are nominated to be on this committee by the president and the faculty senate executive committee. This committee can nominate up to 3 recipients per year. Some year they nominate 0, which is why there've been so few honorary doctorates that have been awarded. The criteria are truly exceptional. These nominations then go to the Faculty Senate Steering Committee and to the President, who forward their recommendations to the Board of Regents, you, for confirmation. And then, if approved, the degree will be conferred at an official university-wide ceremony, such as commencement or convocation, and at any campus. This year, I am delighted to tell you that the committee is recommending, again, 2 individuals for this extraordinary award. Both of these individuals have demonstrated extraordinary personal integrity over a lifetime of service. Both of these individuals have undertaken sustained work on behalf of students and communities with profound effects over many decades. It's really cool for me to be able to talk about this right after the discussion you just had about student retention. I think you'll really be excited to see what these individuals have done. And both of these individuals continue to serve, inspire, and inform the Washington State University community and Washington State. One of the interesting things about this is that the identities of the committee's nominees have remained confidential. They do not even know that they have been nominated. I am now going to introduce candidate A. The first nominee I would like to share with you is a professor of aerospace engineering at a prestigious university and is a member of the National Academy of Engineering. She grew up in Eastern Washington and had to overcome significant barriers to achieve her educational and professional goals. She became the first woman astronaut from Washington State. She flew 5 missions on the space shuttle. She has strong ties to Washington State, such as through her work as president and chief executive officer with the Museum of Flight. She delivered a well-regarded commencement address to our Tri-Cities campus in 2008. She is a pillar in her field and an inspiration to aspiring scientists, especially those who must overcome barriers to achieve their goals, exemplifying the mission and strategic plan of Washington State University, as you have been discussing. So on behalf of the WSU faculty, our committee therefore has the profound honor of forwarding our recommendation to you, the Board of Regents, to confer the honorary doctoral degree upon candidate A. The second nomination I would like to share with you is for candidate B, who graduated from Washington State University with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering in 1974 and has excelled far beyond his already impressive 35-year career at Boeing as a test engineer and Boeing Technical Fellow. It is the consensus of the committee that candidate B has made tremendous contributions to Washington State and to the student success mission of Washington State University. The contributions of candidate B to the Washington State Academy of Sciences, to which he has been a member of the Education Committee since 2011, and currently is a member of the board, have been energetic and sustained. And you have additional information about both of these candidates in your background information. Candidate B began by mentoring his own children, and his love of helping students has grown into a 15+ year commitment to tens of thousands of students through his involvement in regional, state, and international science fairs. His efforts have seemed even to gain momentum post-retirement, which was in 2016 as an aerospace engineer and technical fellow. He serves on 3 nonprofit boards, including as vice president of the state science fair, which he's been doing for many years. This is a tireless commitment indeed. He also organizes teacher training, which relates to our retention mission, and has published a number of articles, papers, and a chapter in a handbook. His commitment to project-based, collaborative, creative learning environments has motivated and enabled thousands of diverse, talented students to succeed in science and technology. Therefore, on behalf of the faculty of Washington State University, it is therefore a tremendous honor for our committee to bring candidate B to you, the Board of Regents, as an exceptional nominee for your consideration to confer the award of honorary doctoral degree to him by Washington State University. Thank you for your consideration of our committee's nominees for the honorary doctoral degree.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? All right, this will come before us for an action item tomorrow. Chair Shower, thank you very much for coming.
You're
Thank
very
you for that
welcome.
wonderful.
Thank you for your work on this. I know how hard the committee worked on this. And I think it yielded some wonderful results this year.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank the staff who supported our work and answered many questions as we clarified procedures and so on. We really appreciate it. And the community who made the nominations.
Thank you again. Chair Shower, that's our report.
Hey, Chris, not pertaining to these two candidates, but 24 in the history of the school. Does this indicate a change or a new direction in the future?
I don't know. I mean, we really went back and forth with some of the criteria and, honestly, there was a long discussion about whether somebody who had a degree from us should be getting an honorary degree from us. And I think we're trying to open this up. It wouldn't make sense if you got a doctorate from WSU to get an honorary doctorate from WSU, but it's obviously very different, a bachelor's degree. But I think we've had some narrow interpretations, and I think to me, 24 means it's very prestigious. And it means that we're not giving them away like some universities do just to court favor and stuff like that, which I think is wonderful. But it also, to me, means maybe some lost opportunities to recognize people who really done meaningful work and impacted the state and their field. So,
I want to give a shout out to Kirk on this one because it was one of the initiatives that when he came on board, he looked at and said, why aren't we doing this? This is a wonderful opportunity for us. And he really fostered the faculty and the faculty senate, putting together, re-examining our interpretation of the RCW and our WAC, I think it is.
Yeah.
And getting moving on it. So Kirk deserves a shout out for getting this moving.
Would these be numbers 3 and 4 under your tenure? No?
It's more than that.
10 or 12.
10 or 12.
Yeah. Kirk's done a great job of getting this going.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk.
Okay. Thank you for the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Appreciate you, Regent Pika. The Regents will now break for lunch and we will resume at 1:30 in this room. Thank you.
So good.